I never imagined that a black maid could heal my billionaire son's unbearable pain. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My phone rang, its sharp sound echoing in the empty halls of our mansion. The world felt heavy, like a dark curtain closing down on all hope. "Mom," he cried, his voice trembling. A mix of desperation and sorrow cut through me like a knife. "I can't do this anymore." I rushed there, my heart pounding. When I found him, my son was hunched over on the floor, tears streaming down his face. The weight of expectations crushed him: success, wealth, and the constant pressure to be perfect. They say money can't buy happiness, but can it nurture a broken soul? As I held him close, I noticed their eyes shift to the corner of the room. Lucille, our housemaid, usually blending into the shadows of our grand home, stood watching. Her dark skin glistened under the soft chandelier light, a stark contrast to the marble floors. There was something about her presence that felt almost magical, like she carried a piece of wisdom lost to the rest of us. She didn't just clean. There was an aura around her. I remembered the night she spoke of her grandmother, who was said to have a gift, a healing touch passed down through generations. It sounded like folklore, a distant myth, but the weight of her words lingered. My son had never spoken to her. He never noticed how she hummed softly while dusting the furniture, her voice wrapping around the room like a warm embrace. That day, however, something shifted. It felt like fate was nudging me forward. Maybe she could help? I whispered, my own voice strange in my ears. But would he even accept the offer? A black maid healing a billionaire's pain? It felt absurd. Yet deep down, I sensed a flicker of hope. Maybe she was the missing piece in our broken puzzle. Instincts screamed at me, but I pressed forward, desperate for a miracle. I took a cautious step toward Lucille, our eyes locking for a brief moment. In her gaze was understanding, compassion, something I hadn't seen in a long while. The tension in my son was palpable. Could she really break through the armor he built around himself? "Lucille," I began, the plea dawning on my lips as 1,000 questions surfaced. Would she say yes? Could a simple maid bridge the chasm of despair my son felt? Just as I opened my mouth to ask, the room went silent. It was suffocating. My heart raced. I glanced back at my son. His gaze, now drifting between confusion and curiosity, held a flicker of something I hadn't seen in too long: hope. And then, in that charged silence, I noticed Lucille take a step forward, her hands outstretched and trembling ever so slightly. What was about to unfold? Could we really rely on a stranger to piece our family back together? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence hung thick in the air as I held my breath, willing the moment to stretch, to last for just a heartbeat longer. My son's eyes darted back and forth between Lucille and me, uncertainty painting his features. Yet, there was a glimmer of intrigue lurking beneath the surface. His walls, once impassable, seemed to waver. "Lucille, would you?" I hesitated, the weight of my words stalling my voice. "Would you be willing to help my son?" Her gaze deepened, layers of emotion swirling within. "Helping is all I know, ma'am," she replied, her voice a gentle melody that softened the sharp edges of our reality. Each word was weighed with sincerity, as if she understood the gravity of what was being asked of her. A small nod from my son urged me to continue. "Can you help him find a way through this darkness? I know it's a lot to ask." My heart raced, the responsibility of his healing resting heavily on the thin line between vulnerability and desperation. Lucille stepped closer, approaching my son with a caution that reminded me of someone tiptoeing past a waking giant. "May I?" she asked, her voice serene. He looked to me for approval, and I nodded, though inside, I was torn between hope and fear. As she knelt beside him, her presence enveloped him like a soft blanket on a cold winter night. Slowly, she reached for his hands, their contrasting colors a poignant reminder of the worlds they inhabited. "Let's breathe together," she said softly, guiding him to inhale deeply. Everything is going to be okay. I observed them, my heart swelling with an emotion I hadn't expected. She was doing something as simple as breathing, yet there was power in her actions. His anguish hung in the air like a specter, and in that moment, it felt as if the walls of his pain began to crack. Yet just as hope began to seep into the crevices of my soul, the reality of my world loomed large. What if this didn't work? What if we were left with shattered pieces, an even greater chasm of despair? My mind spiraled with the countless what-ifs that had plagued me since the day the news of his suffering had shattered our routine. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, fracturing the fragile moment we shared. My heart sank. "They'll get it," I murmured, trying to suppress the panic that bubbled within. As I moved toward the door, I hoped it wasn't another unwelcome reminder of our Troubleza business partner seeking consulting, or worse, a press inquiry. But as I opened the door, the sight in front of me knocked the breath out of my lungs. It was Lydia, my daughter, her arms crossed against the chill of the autumn air, a determined look etched on her face. "I need to talk to you. Now," she said, urgency woven into her tone. "We're in the middle of something," I pleaded, glancing back at Lucille, who had seamlessly engaged my son in a comforting exercise. I felt the tension radiate through Methy had just begun to find their rhythm. "Mom, please," Lydia insisted, stepping over the threshold uninvited. "It's important. It's about Jason." My body stiffened at the mention of my youngest son, our quiet, sensitive boy lost in the shadows of his brother's success. Is he okay? Panic laced through my words as dread knotted my stomach. Lydia's eyes shifted, revealing a flood of emotions too complex for words. "No, he's not. And I think it has something to do with everything that's happening with Miles." Her gaze hardened with the weight of her knowledge. "We can't ignore this anymore." I stood there in the threshold, alarm coursing through my veins. I felt the delicate balance of hope and despair tilt dangerously toward the latter. The sanctuary we were beginning to build was at risk fractured before it even had a chance to ignite. I glanced back to see Miles and Lucille, their bond fragile, yet beautifully transformative, a moment punctuated by the doorway barring our family from the healing we desperately needed. What lay beyond closed doors could shatter the very foundation we'd begun to rebuild. Lydia's voice, steadier now, pulled me back. "Mom, please. This is serious." The urgency echoed in her plea, a chilling reminder that pain loved company. All I could do was nod, the weight of my decisions pressing heavily upon me. "Okay, let's talk." But as I returned to the room, unease lingered, the flicker of hope consumed once more by the shadows that loomed over us, dark and stretching. In the depths of my heart, I feared that what we thought might heal us could instead unravel us even further. The revelations that awaited us might change everything or tear us apart. The room felt different as I crossed the threshold, an invisible tension hanging like an uninvited guest. My breath caught in my throat when I saw Miles' eyes widening in confusion, the brief moment of solace with Lucille dissipating like smoke in the air. She hadn't turned to look at me yet, her focus entirely on my son, whose fragile state seemed in need of gentle hands far more than harsh truths. "Mom." Miles' voice cracked, suspended between uncertainty and fear. "What's going on?" Anxiety twisted in my stomach as I confronted him. "Nothing, sweetie. Just family matters." With the weight of Lydia's urgent revelation still looming, I felt an overwhelming desire to shield him from the chaos threatening to break open. Lucille's hands remained on Miles, a stabilizing force amidst the rising confusion. "You don't have to worry, Miles. We're here together." Her voice was soothing, but the shattering reality of my daughter's presence continued to gnaw at my insides, setting the stage for conversations I hadn't prepared for. "Lydia just came to talk about Jason," I said carefully, knowing that words could be knives, sharp and slicing. It's important." I fought back the swell of emotions trying to rise. "Why can't we just focus on me?" Miles shot back, a flicker of anger igniting as he withdrew his hands from Lucille's grasp. "I'm right here. I need help." Lydia's expression hardened, determination clashing with her concern for her brother. "Miles, you don't understand. I wouldn't barge in if it wasn't crucial. You need to hear this. It's about all of us." A quiet fury began to bubble beneath the surface of my son's previously subdued demeanor, and a flicker of vulnerability transformed into an overwhelming swell of defensiveness. The very air felt charged and electric. Why should I care about Jason when I feel like I'm falling apart? Because, Lydia interjected sharply, her voice ringing with urgency, he's hurting too, and we can't let him drown while you fight your own demons. The intensity of her words hung uncomfortably in the air, and I felt my heart sink deeper, caught between the needs of my children. Lucille, sensing the shifting energy, remained a comforting presence in the background, but anxiety flickered in her eyes. She was here to heal, not to be caught in a web of our complicating family dynamics. The last thing I wanted was for her to think us incapable of finding peace. Miles, I implored gently, feeling the need for vulnerability in this moment. We are a family, and each of us has our own battles. But we can't ignore Jason. We can't ignore the pain that's fractured us all. His gaze darted between Lydia and me, a young heart wrestling with an unbearable weight of expectations. Why can't we just forget everything? Why can't we heal? Just as despair threatened to settle heavier than ever, Lucille spoke, her voice breaking the tensions like sun breaking through clouds. Healing comes from understanding, sweetheart. It takes time, patience, and honesty both with ourselves and with those we love. But it's possible. You have to believe that. The crack in Miles' fierce demeanor offered a glimpse of the boy yearning for light in this darkened room. What if it's too late? He whispered, a tremor in his voice. It's never too late to seek help, Lucille said firmly. The layers of conviction in her words wrapped around him like a lifeline. Before I could breathe in the fragile hope being woven in front of me, Lydia shifted the conversation. There's something else you need to know, Miles. The urgency returned, startling us all from the momentary calm. Her face paled, as if the truth weighed her down. What I found out involves Jason and the current state of Mom's business. It's all connected, fear twisted in my chest, weaving through the bond one felt with my family. What do you mean? Her eyes darted nervously, illuminating the storm raging beneath her composed surface. There are things happening in the company that could endanger Jason and us if we don't confront them. I heard things whispers they didn't intend for me to catch. I think her voice faded, leaving a daunting silence. We need to move quickly. Before it's too late, she finished, her words cutting through the stillness like a knife. The implications washed over me like a cold wave. I felt the walls of the room close in, each heartbeat against the backdrop of trepidation. The precarious bridge we were building, the flickering hope I desperately clung to, as potentially intertwined with depths of darkness I hadn't even begun to fathom. Miles, I whispered, my heart heavy with the burden of reality. We're here for you, but we need to tackle this together. But just as the fragility of connection began to show cracks, an unexpected twist emerged. A message chimed in my pocket, the screen illuminating with a name that sent chills through me. It was from a lawyer, and it read, "We need to talk. The situation is more urgent than we believed." Every ounce of resolve I had crumbled. The protection I thought I could offer my children began to dissolve as uncertainty enveloped our fragile moments. What lay ahead was an abyss, both unknown and terrifying, threatening to drag us all in before we learned how to breathe again. Miles moved away, his words hanging in the air like bitter smoke, a reminder of just how fragile everything had become. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him closer, but he was already retreating into his world, a realm tangled with shadows and echoes of unresolved hurt. The flicker of understanding we'd started to foster now felt tenuous and far from solid ground. "Miles, please," I called softly, but his eyes were distant, outrunning the pain that threatened to close in around him. I couldn't help but wonder if I had ever truly been enough for him, enough to shield him from the storms of our family history. "Let's focus," Lydia urged, her tone a mixture of anxiety and desperation as she battled against the rising tide of our family discord. "Mom, I know this is hard. I know it's overwhelming. But if we don't confront what's going on in the company, with Jason, we might lose everything. We don't have time to spare." I nodded, but my heart was thrumming painfully in my chest, each beat echoing in the silence. "You think Jason's in danger because of the business problems?" The gravity of my question weighed heavily between us, congealed in the air like a thick fog, stifling our breath. "Yes." He was close to uncovering something. Her voice trailed off, the burden of her knowledge nearly swallowing her whole. "But he's not the only one at risk. We are too. A fresh wave of fear washed over me, mingling with the sense of helplessness that had taken root deep inside my gut. I couldn't allow anyone to drown, least of all my children. Then we need to take action together. Right now. But those words, meant to tether us in solidarity, were quickly being swept away as the harsh reality continued to unfurl. We had so much to contend with, and the churning events surrounding Jason clouded the path forward. Before I could share my thoughts, Lucille stepped in, her quiet strength like the ember of a candle flickering in the wind. I know it's hard, but fear can't hold us back. We can't let it decide our next steps. She glanced at Miles, who stood silent and stony by the doorframe, refusing to engage with our discussions. Your brother needs healing, and that includes everyone being on the same page. Miles, please. He raised his head ever so slightly, meeting her gaze, though dark clouds still loomed over his expression. What if I don't want to be part of this anymore? The room fell silent, and my heart quaked at his words. It felt like standing on a tightrope, with hope on one side and despair dangling precariously on the other. I know it's hard for you, and it's okay to feel lost, I said, desperation leaking through my words. But we're a family, Miles, and that means we face this together even when it hurts. The flicker of resistance in his eyes softened for just a moment, but only before darkness engulfed him again. It's not that easy, he whispered, the pain reflected in his voice a winding chain around my heart that I never said it would be. I replied, my voice trembling, wishing I could ease the burden of his suffering. But we can't allow this to tear us apart. Please don't shut us out. Before he could reply, the phone buzzed again, an unwelcome interruption to our fragile moment. The name on the screen was unrecognizable, sending a shiver through me as I hesitated to answer. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered, my voice quaking slightly. Hello, is this Fiona? The voice was unfamiliar, yet laced with urgency. We have a problem, and you need to be cautious. There are people involved in this situation who won't hesitate to play dirty. You need to come to the office. Now, those words sparked a fire of apprehension deep within me. Who are you? I asked, trying to suppress the rising dread clawing at my throat. Someone who's trying to help, the voice replied, edged with a caution that sent chills surging down my spine. Please, there's no time to explain. Just come. Before I could respond, the line went dead, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. A sickening sensation bloomed in my stomach, the imminent danger starting to wrap its tendrils around my heart. What did they say? Lydia asked, her eyes filled with concern and a hint of fear. It doesn't matter. I paused, wrestling with the decision that loomed ahead. I think I have to go. Alone.no, Miles said, his voice striking hard against the walls of uncertainty surrounding us. You can't just leave us here, Miles, please. The desperation in my voice clashed with the urgency rising in my heart. It might be serious. If Jason's in danger, then protecting him needs my full attention. The atmosphere shifted, apprehension weaving through us all. We're family, Lydia echoed, voice trembling slightly. You can't just leave us to figure this out alone. But before I could answer, all certainty fled as a chilling realization settled in my mind. I didn't just have my children to protect. I may very well be leading them into the lion's den by leaving to handle what was waiting for me. The fate of us all hung in the balance, threading through a web of dread while the unknown call echoed still, intoxicatingly dangerous, as delicate as the strands of hope we had barely begun to weave together. I have to go, I said, feeling each word rip through me. But as I stepped toward the door, I turned back one last time, locking eyes with Miles, and felt the ground slip beneath my feet. A sudden tableau formed, a realization of what I might find waiting for me. Whatever storm awaited in those shadows could very well change everything, including the fragile ties that still bound us as one. The wind howled outside as I stepped into the cool evening air, each gust striking with a chilling clarity that seemed to mirror the tumult within. I held my breath, feeling the weight of every unresolved word and unshed tear clinging to me like a shadow. The car sat idling, darkness pooling around it just as tumultuous as the feelings whirling inside me. As I pulled out of the driveway, adrenaline coursed through my veins, mingling with dread. The distance between where I'd left my family and the looming office felt like a canyon, each moment stretched taut with the possibility of loss. My thoughts drifted back to Miles, still standing there in the doorway, eyes haunted and shattered. I couldn't shake the haunting notion that the more I ventured away from him, the deeper the fractures would run, but the desperate need for answers propelled me forward, even as guilt fought to pull me back. The office glowed in the distance, a beacon that flickered uncertainly, much like my resolve. I parked and stepped inside, the air heavy with unease. The energy buzzed with secrets simmering just beneath the surface. Fiona, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with dark hair pulled tightly back, her expression mingling apprehension and resolve. Clara, I'm glad you came. Who called me? I asked, trying to maintain a facade of calm that threatened to crumble beneath the weight of uncertainty. Someone who knows the stakes, she replied, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to leap from the darkness. We've put you all in danger. You need to know the truth. My heart raced at her words, the implication sending icy tendrils creeping into my chest. What truth? What's happening with Jason? Clara took a step closer, her voice barely above a whisper. He's uncovering something tied to our competitor playing a dangerous game. Having you here to get you involved was a miscalculation. Your absence from the family right now is a vulnerability they will exploit. Why didn't anyone say anything? I pressed, a swell of anger and frustration brimming in my chest. The thought that my family might have been crumbling underfoot while I was left in the dark made my insides churn that I didn't know until it was too late. She confessed, her eyes darkening. But there's more I have to warn you about. As she spoke, the foundation of my world began to tremble, the tremors of reality shifting beneath my feet. You need to get your kids away from this place. They're becoming collateral damage. A chill tightened its grip around my throat. I can't. Miles, he needs me, and I can't just abandon him. What if he's in danger already? For a moment, Clara's expression softened, empathy shining through her urgency. You need to be prepared. If we're right, he may not be safe with his own emotions. He's deep in shadow, Fiona. It's as if he's trading his pain for oblivion. These words struck me like a hammer, and I felt the burn of tears prick my eyes. Miles had been so lost. The burden he carried was unfathomable. Yet here, thrust into this treacherous web, was I in over my head, or was there a chance to gather the threads? Tell me what I need to do, I said, steel creeping into my voice as I willed myself not to falter. If my family is at risk, I won't let fear paralyze us. Clara gave a grateful nod, seeming reassured by my willingness to fight. You need to get them out of town, at least for a while. We'll set up a safe location and ally who can guide you through what's coming. But it needs to be tonight. Tonight? My voice pitched higher. I just left them. They're not going to understand. Trust me, Fiona. This is the one moment you must prioritize their safety over explanations. Make the decision now while you can. As her urgency enveloped me, I felt a sudden tremor ripple through my core where the thread of connection with my family resided. A moment's hesitation played in my mind, a brief vision of Miles standing alone in our chaotic home, wrapping himself in stillness while I scrambled to keep us safe. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from the whirlwind of my thoughts. I fumbled to pull it out, fear curdling my blood as I saw Lydia's name flash across the screen, urgent and trembling. Fiona, it's Jason. We don't know where he is. A sharp gasp escaped my lips, and I felt the room start to tilt on its axis. Lydia, the line went dead. An icy chill raced down my spine, and for a moment, I felt weightless in a fog of panic. They took him, I murmured, realization dawning like a dark cloud enveloping the sun. Clara's eyes widened as she grabbed my arm. We need to move, now? They know you're here. The floor fell away beneath me, and suddenly what felt like near-certain control spiraled into chaos. I had unknowingly crossed a threshold, and the stakes were now higher than I ever imagined. Every decision pulsed within the confines of those walls, yet it sent a wild turn into an entirely new realm, one where danger could snatch away everything and everyone I loved. And the being tied to my heart was losing himself amidst the storm. Please, I began, but lost my voice as reality pressed down on me, shrill and demanding. As we rushed towards the door, dread clawing deep within me, I could only think of the fragile bond tethering me to Miles. What if when the smoke cleared, the ones I loved would have slipped through my fingers? Would shadows still reign? Or would the light return if I survived the flickering darkness beckoning to take the chance away? The rain began to fall as Clara and I rushed down the dimly lit hallway of the office building, the sound of thunder rumbling in the distance. I barely registered its presence. My mind was a vortex of worry, desperately circling back to Jason. My heart pounded against my chest, matching the frantic rhythm of my thoughts. What would I do if something happened to him? Stay close to me, Clara urged, her grip firm on my arm as she guided me through the maze of desperation. We need to get to the parking lot quickly. I nodded, but an unsettling feeling gnawed at me, an insistent whisper of doubt. Can we trust him? I asked, my voice trembling as I recalled Jason's recent emotional distance and how it mirrored the chaos closing in on us now. He's been acting distant and secretive. Clara stopped, eyes wide with understanding, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the reflection of my own turmoil mirrored in her gaze. I know this is hard to believe, but he's caught up in something much larger than either of us. It's not who he is, it's the circumstances forcing him into the shadows. He needs you, Fiona. A surge of warmth filled my heart at her words. The bond one shared with Jason was rooted deep, a history forged through trials and laughter alike. I couldn't let darkness take him from me, just like I wouldn't allow it to snuff out Miles' flickering light. As we reached the exit, a deafening crack of thunder shook the world around us, echoing the dread that gripped my soul. Rain poured down in sheets as we stepped outside, and I squinted through the downpour, searching for the safety of my car. Quick, over here, Clara urged, pulling me towards a sleek black SUV parked inconspicuously in the shadows. Once inside, the warmth enveloped me like a fragile embrace, but no amount of comfort could quell the fears crashing in like waves. I fumbled for my phone, desperate to check for any missed messages or updates, but all I found was silence that rang louder than the storm. How was it possible that just hours ago I'd been caught in the mundane routine of life, and now found myself wrestling with danger? Do you have a plan? I asked, my voice barely a whisper against the storm's roar. Yes, but we need to move fast. Clara started the engine, the tires splashing through puddles as we navigated away from the office. We'll head to a safe house until we can assess what's happening. I'm not going to let them take Jason or your family. As the city zipped by, each street a blur of lights and shadows, dread settled heavily against my chest. I suddenly thought of Lydia, and the phone call that cut off so abruptly. What about my kids? I remembered, panic flaring again. They don't know what's happening. They must be terrified. Trust me. I understand, Clara said, her fingers tightening around the steering wheel. Well, gather them. We need a unified front. And don't worry if they come after you. They'll be met with resistance. But resistance was a feeble shield against heartbreak, and I felt the weight of my responsibilities pressing down. They can't be caught up in this mess, won't let them. In between the flashes of lightning illuminating the night sky, I replayed the conversations I'd had with Miles, the weight of unspoken fears building like thunder. He's struggling, I can see it. If only I could save him from his own hurt. How do I do that when I can't even protect him from this? A deep silence enveloped the vehicle in response. Clara glanced over, her expression softening. You're doing everything you can, Fiona. Just being here and stepping up for them is already a massive step against the shadows looming. My heart swelled with gratitude for her unexpected compassion in this turmoil. This woman, who had been a stranger mere hours before, was now fighting alongside me for our loved ones. What if I'm not enough? I whispered before I could stop myself, the fears spilling out unchecked. It's okay to feel lost, Clara replied, her voice steady. You're not alone in this fight. And we'll find a way to help Miles too. We will. The mention of Miles sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me. How could I expect him to be strong when the world felt so overwhelmingly dark? Uncertainty loomed, cloaking our path in shadows. Suddenly, the SUV came to a halt, the rhythmic beating of rain growing even harsher against the vehicle. This is it, Clara said, her voice tight. She threw open the door and stepped out into the storm without a second thought. Follow me. Shivers coursed through me as I stepped into the cold, but I flicked my gaze toward her and followed, every step an exercise in willpower. The safe house was a blind spot, hidden amidst the towering buildings, with reinforced walls and a resilience that matched my emotions. Wait here, Clara instructed, leading me toward the entrance. Yet before we could go inside and catch our breath, a figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette strained beneath the weight of rain and darkness. Clara, you found her. But we need to hurry. The voice was familiar, and I squinted through the deluge, recognition crashing over me. It was Lydia, soaked to the skin but fiercely holding on to purpose. Where are the kids? What happened? Is Jason okay? My voice broke as I rushed over to her, my pulse echoing the urgency of the moment. But before Lydia could answer, the air grew thick with the sudden, overwhelming threat of something sinister looming behind us, a presence that could tear apart everything I held dear. And then, in the tumultuous rain, the world shattered. The air seemed to shift, a frigid tension spiraling through my body as I turned to face whatever shadow loomed behind us. My heart raced, claws of fear sinking deep as I moved instinctively to position myself protectively in front of Lydia. What's going on? Clara's voice pierced the thick blanket of anxiety that enveloped me. She fished a small flashlight from her pocket, pointing it toward the direction of the threat. My breath hitched as the light revealed the figure emerging from the night, drenched yet unmistakably familiar. Jason stepped forward, his anxiety etched starkly across his face, an almost ethereal glow framing him against the chaos of the rain. Relief rushed over me in an overwhelming wave, but it was quickly edged with confusion. What are you doing here? I blurted, the question a desperate attempt to ground myself amid the storm of emotions swirling around us. I had to find you, he said, his tone trembling with urgency. The desperation in his eyes shattered any relief I had felt moments before. You have to listen to Mike's worse than I thought. They're closer than ever, and they know about the kids. Lydia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, eyes wide in horror. We need to get them to safety now? No, Jason shot back. That's exactly what they want. They'll be waiting for us if we move out in the open. There was such weight in his words, a vulnerability that belied his usual confident demeanor. The sight of him, the man who used to shine with certainty, now looking a shade of lost, made my heart ache. But we can't just leave them, I exclaimed, anger and fear flooding every corner of my being. They shouldn't have to suffer because of your secrets. I know, he said, disappointment flickering behind his eyes. But this isn't just about us anymore. It's much bigger. I could sense the walls he had built around his emotions cracking, his past spilling into the present in the most tumultuous way. Clara stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm. We can't afford any more delays. We need to figure out a plan. The kids will be scared out of their minds. The mention of them pulled me back from the precipice of anger and despair. My mind flashed to images of their sweet smiles, the way they would reach for my hand when they were frightened. The thought of them tangled in this storm, their innocence threatened, ignited a fire within me. Jason, I need you to trust me, I implored. A plan will be useless without the kids. We have to get to them first. He hesitated, running a trembling hand through his soaked hair as if searching for answers, for strength. Okay, he finally murmured. But we need to be strategic. We can't choose recklessly. Lydia, resilient as ever, nodded. Let's get to my car. I parked just around the corner. In a flash, we darted to her vehicle, the rain drumming a relentless rhythm against our hurried footsteps. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the sickening dread of failure. Would our children, who had unknowingly been thrust into this chaos, endure the torment of waiting? Once inside the car, with the engine purring like a soft lullaby, the heat enveloped us, a fleeting moment of solace amidst chaos. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket, and I snatched it up. A new message, one that made my blood run cold. Fiona, we're here. You can't hide from us. We will find what you took. I felt the world tilt on its axis, my grip tightening around the phone. No, I whispered to myself, my voice laden with despair. They know. What is it? Clara's steady gaze met mine, concern etching deeper lines into her brow. They know about the evidence. I stuttered, feeling small and powerless. They're here. Jason's grip on the steering wheel tightened to the point of whiteness, his face hardening into determination. We need to act. Once we get the kids, we can't just run. We have to plan our next moves. But uncertainty loomed like the dark clouds above, and as we started moving towards the school where we had left them, hope flickered like the failing light of a candle in a storm. Will we be too late? In an instant, an unexpected light illuminated the Gloom, a HEDA police vehicle, its flashing lights practically dancing in the rain, cutting through the oppressive darkness. But instead of relief washing over me, a new wave of fear crashed against my chest. I had no idea if they were allies or part of the very threat we were trying to escape. "Hold on," Jason said, weaving sharply to avoid being discovered. My stomach knotted tightly as dread coiled around my heart. The car veered into an alley, hidden from sight, but leaving us suspended in a tense silence, the suffocating weight of our situation overshadowing any flicker of hope. As we glanced around, I spied something in the rearview mirror that made my pulse quick. HEDA figure lingering, watching us from the shadows, their features obscured. It wasn't just a momentary flare of paranoia. Something deep inside me felt the dark certainty settling in. "Who's that?" I croaked, fear rising like bile in my throat, a realization crashing down on me like the heavy rain outside. Jason turned slowly, but whatever relief could have surfaced was quickly smothered by the truth that lingered like a promise unfulfilled. Cloaked within the darkness was a deeper betrayal, and as the weight of it dawned on me, hope spiraled into oblivion. The rain fell harder as we huddled in the confines of Lydia's car, the warm engine contrasting sharply with the icy dread creeping under my skin. Around us, the intermittent flashes of police lights created a surreal dissonance, illuminating a reality that felt more like a nightmare. My heart echoed each flicker, contrasting the calm rhythm of the vehicle's engine against the chaotic rhythm of the storm outside. "What do we do now?" Clara's question was both a plea and a tether, pulling me back from the edge of despair. "I'm going to find the kids," I said with a firmness I hoped would mask the fear trembling underneath. My mind raced through every possible scenario, each worse than the last. "Fiona." "Wait," Jason began, but I silenced him with a glance, my resolve hardening. I needed to get out. I couldn't bear another moment of uncertainty while our children waited, their innocence hanging precariously in the balance. "I can't just sit here." The words burst forth from me, raw and desperate. "We have to act. We can't let fear paralyze us." Lydia turned to me, her expression a blend of concern and determination. "You're right. But we need a plan," she said, her voice steady. "We'll move together, stay with the lights off, and listen for any signs." In that moment, a flicker of gratitude settled in my heart for the unexpected camaraderie amongst us. Though the storm raged outside, the warmth of solidarity wrapped around me. "Okay," I agreed slowly, my breath steadying as I felt the support from my allies. "Let's be quiet and smart." As we edged the car nearer to the school, the air thickened with tension, every heartbeat amplifying the weight of our charge. Jason drove cautiously, a practiced hand behind the wheel, his expression a mask of concentration laced with fear. Lydia and Clara exchanged fleeting glances, silent conversations passing between them, ensuring we all understood the gravity of our undertaking. "Look," Clara pointed towards the lot as we approached the school. The door had been left ajar, a bleak invitation beckoning us into the unknown. My heart sank at the sight. "Do you think they got out?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The thought of our kids in danger clawed at my insides. I clenched my fists, a wave of nausea rising. But without a moment's thought, Jason parked the car down the street, blending into the shadows like a flicker from a dream. "This is it," he said, determination threading through his voice once more. The darkness of the school loomed like a giant, hiding untold secrets within its walls. "Stay close," I urged, pushing open the door and stepping out into the chilling rain. The cold found its way into my bones as if trying to swallow me whole, but I fought against it. It was almost surreal, the despair mingled with the desperate hope that illuminated the path ahead. We moved in silence, darting from one shadow to another, hearts pounding in sync. The building loomed ahead, a fortress that once held laughter and innocence, now transformed into a battleground of fear. We approached the door, Lydia's hand on the knob, yet before she could twist it open, a low creak echoed from inside. A shiver cascaded down my spine. Someone else was in there, someone who shouldn't be. "Wait," Jason said, holding up a hand. "Let's listen." We froze, breaths held collectively as the sound intensified. A child's muffled whimper sliced through the thick silence. A fierce protectiveness overwhelmed me. "That's them. We have to get in." With a swift motion, Lydia kicked the door open, revealing a dark corridor that swallowed the light. My heart raced as a burst of adrenaline surged through me. "Kids," I called, my voice sharp against the stillness of the night. "We're coming," Clara shouted back, and I could hear the urgency in her tone. Then, almost as if in answer to our call, a figure darted down the hall's small silhouette, trembling and covered in what appeared to be rain and sheer terror. I rushed forward, but then stopped abruptly as a loud crash erupted from deep within the building. "Fiona!" Jason's alarmed voice broke across the chaos, pulling my attention back just in time to witness another shadow moving toward us this time. Not the innocence of a child, but the ambiguity of danger. "Get back!" I screamed, pushing Lydia behind me as the figure stepped into the harsh glow of a distant flashlight, revealing a familiar face bathed in an aura of menace. It was Charlie, their eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity, shoulders tense as he held some small artifact that glinted ominously in the dim light. "Evidence, sir, a weapon that I should have known you'd be here." "Fiona," he said, his smirk sending chills down my spine. "You really thought you could hide from me? You have something that belongs to me." Suddenly, the shadows shrank, isolating us against a darkness that felt alive and hungry, the weight of betrayal heavier than the rain pouring down outside. All hope felt like a fragile dream shattered by one crystal-clear truth. The enemy was closer than ever, and betrayal ran deeper than any of us had imagined. The air crackled with an electric tension as Charlie stepped closer, the faint beam of his flashlight dancing across our faces. A shiver crawled up my spine, and for a moment, I could hardly process his words. Jason moved to block my path, a silent defender, but I felt the visceral pull of fear wrap tighter around my heart. "Charlie, this isn't you," I forced out, my voice trembling as I searched for remnants of the boy I once knew. "You don't have to do this." His grin morphed slightly, an unsettling blend of amusement and madness. "But it is me, Fiona. This world, this place, it's all a game. And I'm just playing it better than you." He wiggled the object in his hand, and my eyes widened. It was a small silver pendant, engraved with intricate designs, a memento that had been missing for years. It belonged to my mother, a family heirloom meant to bring protection to its bearer. My heart raced. "You have no idea what you're doing," I shouted, desperation fueling my words. "You think you can control this? You're going to hurt them." A flicker of something, fear? Regret? Crossed his face before it hardened once more. "Tell me, where's your precious boy? Is he safe?" The venomous tone dripped from his tongue. A jagged shard of guilt pierced me. My first instinct was to shout out Ethan's name, to draw attention to the one vulnerability I knew Charlie had toyed with for too long. But I couldn't risk it. "Not now. Where are the kids?" Clara's voice broke the rising tension, each word carrying the weight of concern that echoed our shared horror. "Oh, they're around," Charlie replied, his eyes gleaming in the light. "But trust me, it's more fun when they're not. You see, kids are so easily scared it's a rush watching them squirm." The horrific twist in his expression sent adrenaline surging through my veins. It was a sickening reminder of the boy who had once sat beside us in school, now twisted into a being of cruelty. "Stop!" I yelled, taking a step forward, fueled by a mix of defiance and protectiveness. "I won't let you hurt them." At that moment, the unmistakable sound of kids laughing echoed down the hallway, a bright, innocent sound that felt out of place in the darkness that surrounded us. "Shut up," Charlie snapped, his flashlight wavering as he absorbed the noise. For a fraction of a moment, he hesitated. Lydia seized the opportunity, darting right as Jason stepped left, attempting to flank him. In the chaos, I decided that there was no time left for hesitation. I rushed towards him, heart beating ferociously, hoping to distract him enough for my friends to take action. As I veered to the side, I felt a surge of determination mingling with the fear swirling in my gut. "You're not invincible, Charlie. You are just a coward hiding in the dark." His sneer faltered for a heartbeat, but it was enough. Jason lunged forward, grasping Charlie by the arm. The two grappled in a whirlwind of panic and desperation, crashing against lockers and scattering long-abandoned classroom supplies. "Go. Get the kids," Jason barked, fighting with all the strength he could muster. Unable to watch my friends risk their safety, I bolted down the corridor, my instinct driving me toward the laughter that pierced the darkness like a beacon. With each hurried footstep, Relief washed over me as I rounded a corner. The hallway opened up to a larger Spacian old gymnasium lit sporadically by flickering emergency lights. My breath caught in my throat as I spotted them. A cluster of small figures huddled together, their wide eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Ethan," I cried, racing to them. He turned, eyes widening, and rushed into my arms, the warmth of his tiny body grounding me in this moment of chaos. "Mom," he whimpered, buried deep in my embrace. "It's okay, baby. I'm here," I whispered, kissing the top of his head as I glanced around for the others. "Where's Mia? And Lucas?" "Over there." Ethan pointed, and I glanced to see Mia clinging to Lucas, her eyes misty but valiantly holding back tears. Their relief at my presence sharpened my resolve enough to reassess their surroundings. As I drew them in, enveloping them in a protective hug, I heard footsteps approaching. Panic surged, and I instinctively tightened my grip around Ethan. "Stay close to me." Just then, the gym doors swung open with a menacing creak, and Charlie's silhouette filled the threshold, battered but seething with rage and determination. Behind him, I caught glimpses of Jason and Lydia struggling against the shadows, their fight against him lingering uncertainly. But there was something else, a glint I hadn't noticed before. Lurking just out of view in Charlie's hand was not just the pendant, but something else, something darker that promised violence. "Did you really think you could escape me?" he growled, stepping further into the gym, the chaos of the storm outside echoing in sync with the chaos unfolding within. "Mom," Ethan cried, sensing the growing danger and pressing against me stronger. The air thickened with despair, and just as I felt hope slipping through my fingers, a voice broke through the tension. "Let them go, Charlie." A new figure stepped into view, cloaked in the dim light of the Jima black silhouette, radiating an aura of authority that contrasted sharply with the chaos around us. It was a voice I never thought I'd hear again, one that resonated deep within my heart. That it was Jenna, my childhood friend, standing there, fierce and unyielding, a hero emerging from the shadows, ready to confront the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. Everything in me held its breath, teetering on the precipice of hope and dread, the terrifying truth overshadowed only by the flickering glimmer of relentless courage. With Jenna's presence igniting the air around us, the heaviness dissolved in an instant. "Let them go, Charlie." Her voice cut through the tension, its strength an anchor amidst the brewing storm. There was a confidence in her that resonated, igniting a flicker of hope deep within. May was no longer alone in this battle. Charlie's grip on the pendant tightened, his expression contorting with confusion and rage. "You think you can just waltz in and take control, Jenna? You don't know what you're dealing with." But in the jagged silence that enveloped us, we all felt the tide of fear beginning to retreat, just slightly. "Maybe I do," she replied, stepping completely into the light, an aura of unwavering determination radiating from her. "But this isn't just about power or intimidation, Charlie. You know that as well as I do. You're better than this, better than the shadows that have consumed you." Her words hung in the air, challenging him to awaken from the darkness that had ensnared him. The room still echoed with tension, and I sensed Ethan trembling in my embrace, while Mia and Lucas exchanged frightened glances. "It's okay," I murmured to them, though my heart was racing. How could we emerge from this knot after knot of pain entwined in the fabric of our lives? "Stay back," Charlie shouted, raising the pendant threateningly, its gleam almost wicked in the flickering light. "You don't know the power of the things you're playing with." "Neither do you," Jenna shot back, her voice steady as she faced him. "You think that pendant gives you power? Real power lies not in what you take, but in what you choose to give: love, forgiveness, connection. You've lost your way, but it's not too late." For an agonizing instant, Charlie faltered, his facade cracking as confusion sparked in his eyes. I could see the boy he had once been battling against, the darkness consuming him. "You don't understand," he began, but his words trailed off, fear clawing at the edges of his resolve. "Then let me," Jenna implored, her unwavering gaze holding his. "Let me help you find the way back." I could see him waver, but the moment was cut short by an unsettling sound, a crash reverberating down the hall. Suddenly, the air felt laden with dread again. I barely had time to register the danger before the gym doors burst open once more, revealing several figures emerging from the shadows. Menacing silhouettes with narrowed eyes, hungry for a confrontation. "Time's up, Charlie," one of them spat, stepping forward, their presence palpable. They had been tracking him, tracking us. The air thickened with fear as they inched toward our group, drawing closer as Charlie's bravado began to falter. With swift instinct, Jenna pivoted, positioning herself between us and the encroaching danger. "We will not let you hurt these kids," she declared, voice unwavering even as the tension flared. "Walk away now, while you still can, and we can resolve this without violence. You think you can protect them?" The leader spat back, laughter rolling like thunder. "These kids are nothing but pawns in a game far beyond your understanding." But in that moment, I felt something shift. Through the spiraling chaos and fear, clarity pierced the darkness. We were not merely players in someone else's game. We were family, bound by undying love and tenacity, and that connection gave us strength. "Charlie," I shouted, pulling back momentarily, my voice rising above the chaos. "This isn't you. You're not alone in this fight. Don't let them use you. Join us together. We can fight against what they're trying to exploit." He hesitated again, visibly struggling against the forces battling for his soul. I stepped closer, hesitance morphing into determination. "I will forgive you. You can come back with us. We will help you. No more running. No more hiding." For a moment, everything fell silent, a breath caught in collective anticipation as eyes darted back and forth. Charlie was standing at the crossroads of his fate, yet rage was storming in him still, threatening to pull him away from the light. But Jenna spoke again, this time with a fierce gentleness. "You're not a monster, Charlie. This isn't who you are. It's the darkness that's consumed you and made you believe you have no choice. Choose to fight back against it." Abruptly, he released the pendant, allowing it to fall to the ground, the loud clang echoing in the room like a bell tolling softly for change. It didn't shatter. It simply landed there, a mirror of his broken choices, waiting to be reborn. The figures in the doorway froze, their opportunity slipping as Charlie's focus shifted. He looked at the ground, a mixture of shame and hope swirling in his eyes, as if he was finally breaking free from the shackles that had bound him. In that pivotal moment, the spell broke. He took a faltering step back towards Jenna, surrender simmering in the air, and the menacing figures began to stagger backward, caught between their motivations and Charlie's shift. "Get out," Charlie shouted, voice trembling. "You don't get to take them." A fire ignited where shadow had once dwelled, pushing against the encroaching darkness, and it was enough to send them scrambling. The realization dawned within me, a powerful truth that stretched across the room. Forgiveness granted strength that transcended fear, and connection could wield light strong enough to break through the darkest of nights. Together, I nodded, urging everyone to join hands. In moments of peril, together we could weave a tapestry resilient enough to withstand any storm. The kids joined me, eyes wide yet trusting, their small hands fitting into ours, a makeshift barrier against the shadows that threatened binding us as family, as allies. "Dawn 3, I announced, steadying the collective tension. 1, 2, 3. The gymnasium erupted as we turned toward our newfound opponent, positivity illuminating the tempest of uncertainty. The power of our unity felt like a warm embrace, gifting us with courage as we prepared to stand firm against adversity and reclaim our fate. And together, we held strong, bound by a promise to not only fight for ourselves, but also for the boys and girls watching, lending their hearts to our sphere of compassion. The storm outside might rage on, but within these walls, love and connection shone bright and fierce. Years later, I would look back at that moment, how a black maid whispered healing into our lives, how a childhood friend rekindled the flame of solidarity, reminding us that even the darkest contexts can be softened by the light of forgiveness. In life, battles would come, storms would grow, but as long as we held one another in our hearts and chose love over shadows, we could always find our way back to the light. As solidarity echoed through those hallowed walls, a final thought blossomed within me. An anchor in the chaos, the most powerful force of all was us together, forged by resilience and love. In that moment of unity, as we walked forward, an unspoken vow settled in my heart. No longer would darkness dictate our path or silence our voices. This was just the beginning. and in unison, we took our first steps toward freedom.